In this video, we're going to take a look at a green ink by Sailor Waka Uquisu, I think. As always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description are links to playlists, so if you'd prefer to see a different green ink, that's going to be linked down there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, it does shade. Look at the Waka, goes dark to light to dark. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, it does shade very nicely as brown goes darker to lighter. Quick goes darker to lighter to darker, over goes light to dark, and 9 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, a very nice shading as brown goes dark to light to dark. Over goes dark to light to dark. The goes light to dark. 15 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both shows some color variation, not a ton. It's much better in the writing. And the smear test, you stand a pretty good chance of recovering if you smeared while you're writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a TWSBI Mini with a fine nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample is done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, it does show shading. Look at the Uquisu, and you see it goes lighter to darker and works its way lighter through it. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, it does show some shading as quick goes mid to light to dark. Brown goes mid to light, and fox goes light to dark. The is a very dark word compared to what's around it, and 16 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, it does shade very nicely as brown goes darker to lighter, fox lighter to darker, over lighter to darker, 22 seconds to dry. Scrubby shows not a ton of color variation, much better in the writing, and the smear test I do not think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita that there's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down and then is put in the water for 10 to 15 seconds. And this is incredibly interesting because it should look more brown than it does according to this. We see it push its way up, and what we come across is this really neat orange. Then green, and now the thing is when you put orange and green together, you should get more of a brown tone. That's really neat that it doesn't. The one on the right is let dry for 10 minutes before it's put into water, and we don't see a tremendous difference between the two. In fact, I don't know that you could tell the difference between them if I didn't mark the filter paper. Not expecting any resistance here. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, no shade. I misspoke. Quick goes darker to lighter to darker. Brown goes dark to light to dark. Fox goes dark to light to dark. The goes light to dark. Nice shading here, 11 seconds to dry. The medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, and some very nice shading as brown goes darker to lighter to darker. Fox goes light to dark. Quick goes dark to light to dark. Beautiful. 16 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both don't show a ton of color variation, but it's much better in the writing. And the smear test you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink can be expected to perform on a page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, there's some blowout there that I just can't get past. To be completely honest, I wouldn't use it because of that, very risk averse. I wouldn't use it in a note-taking situation if I needed to go back and highlight. But looking at water, you see why this happens. You see that a majority of the ink is coming up. There's a little bit of a yellow tone kind of being left behind. But it only took water to get this out of my pen. Now, the pen flesh does everything that water does and nothing more. The 1/3 bleach solution is completely obliterating it, but again, it only took water. The next writing sample is done on G-Lalo paper. We have no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It shades fairly well as the goes light to dark to light. Quick goes lighter to darker, brown goes darker to lighter, and 6 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, decent shading, quick going dark to lighter to darker, brown going darker to lighter, 9 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show a little bit of color variation, still shows itself better in the writing, but the smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, and the realm of normal was 2.1 to 2.9. Sailor's Waka Uquisu has a viscosity of 1.34, making this a pretty wet ink. If you're interested in how the viscosity and all that stuff's done, then there's a link to that video down in the description. Now, let's take a look at the next writing sample done on original crown mill paper. No bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It does shade some, as you see the Waka Uquisu goes from darker through lighter as it works through all of that writing. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does shade rather well, brown going darker to lighter, fox going lighter to darker, over going lighter to darker, 7 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, not as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does shade as over goes lighter to darker, brown goes darker to slightly lighter, but fox is lighter to darker. 9 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both shows some color variation. As it has been, it's better in the writing. And the smear test, I don't think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Sailor's Waka Uquisu has an average dry time of 15 seconds, making it normal. The last writing sample is done on limon paper. Not known as fountain pen friendly, we do get a lot of spots where it's coming very deep into the page, but the good news in all of that is it's not coming through the page. Most people could use the back of the paper with no real problem as there's no major ghosting. The 1.1 has feathering, a lot of tiny feathering all over it, but not the type I think that will stop most people from using it. It does spread, it has no halo sheen and no shade. The extra fine is a little lighter than the stub. It has no feathering. It does have a little bit of spread to about a fine. It has no halo sheen. It has a couple of moments of shade, like the K in quick over looks a bit darker than quick. 5 seconds to dry. Medium is a little darker than the extra fine, a little lighter than the stub. No feather. Yep, just double checking that. No feather, no spread. No halo sheen, no shade, 6 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both, they're showing no color variation. We're really not getting it here, but the smear, you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Sailor's Waka Uquisu, I know I'm killing that, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a nice ink also by Sailor, their Peche. Now, if you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description you can find links to those playlists. So what do I think of Sailor's Waka Uquisu? A really cool lighter green with a bunch of nice shading. I am in general a fan of the Sailor inks and I don't mind the small bottles. Just look at the beautiful tone on this page. Wow. So what nib and pen give the best writing experience with this ink? I didn't care for its darker tone that was put down by a much wetter pen, but it also ate up the shading. Your medium flow pen with any nib puts down a great tone with pretty decent shading. And a dry pen really does sort of make it a little too light to comfortably use through a full page of writing. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next one, we're going to take a look at Mont Blanc's Lavender.